Today I dare to open the vault. Hello and welcome to a Rotted Review of the Day, and today I am taking a look at the 1973 British classic, The Vault of Horror. I saw this pop up on my Shudder feed and I just couldn't help but give it a whirl. It looked interesting, it had a 5-star rating, and what I found after the fact is something that I suspected while watching the movie, and this is a spiritual successor to the 1972 classic Tales from the Crypt, even going so far as to be released in parts of the world as Tales from the Crypt 2. And in keeping with that, I found that everything that I loved about the 1972 Tales from the Crypt is here. Everything that I loved about it, at the very least. Just a little less so on every count. This has 5 segments. It's an anthology horror. It has Midnight Mess, The Neat Job, This Trick Will Kill You, Bargain in Death, and Drawn and Quartered. Just like Tales from the Crypt, it has 5 one character from each segment kind of sitting around an area. Instead of a crypt, it is 5 gentlemen find themselves in an elevator, and it lets them off in the basement where none of them had selected to be let off. And in the basement is a room with no doors, no windows, and so on and so forth. But it's a nice little gentlemanly lounge with some booze and some, nice round table. And, in very stiff British fashion, they decide, let's make the most of it. Have a brandy and let's tell some stories and so forth. That's pretty much what kicks this off, is each one of these gentlemen telling their tales. Or at the very least, these tales of these very vivid dreams they've been having and so on. And if you've seen Tales from the Crypt, then the ending to this one is not going to be too much of a surprise to you. The 5 gentlemen in this one that kind of make up the principal players in this one, Daniel Massey playing Rogers, Terry Thomas playing Critchett. If you've seen It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, then Terry Thomas is going to stand out to you right away. And that's what happened with me. I hadn't really seen him in a whole lot else, but as soon as I heard his voice, it was just iconic. It's like, okay. Kurt Jurgens as Sebastian, Michael Craig as Maitland, and Tom Baker, the doctor himself, as Moore. So each one of these have their own segments, and I enjoyed all of them. I'll go ahead and throw up all the categories here. Each category is worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And if you compare it to my scoring of the Tales from the Crypt, you'll find that each one of them is a little bit less so. And that's just ultimately how I found this movie to be. Enjoyable, good quality, but just doesn't really hold a candle to its predecessor. And I think the best way that I can really explain that is nothing in this film comes even remotely close to the heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, well-written, and well-acted performance of Peter Cushing as Grimsdyke in Tales from the Crypt's Poetic Justice segment. All of these segments are entertaining in their own right. They're all tales of comeuppance, and you just kind of get through them and, give a little applause and so forth. They're well done. They're just nothing of that high caliber that Tales from the Crypt managed to reach, especially with the Poetic Justice segment there. But regardless, it was entertaining and it was enjoyable, and I think it was well written. Midnight Mess has to do with an individual trying to find his sister. He is estranged from her, and he finds that she has been holed up in this small little town. And when he gets there, it's roughly late afternoonish, 5, 6 o'clock, and so forth. And he's not finding the locals to be a lot of help. There's a very strong air of mystery going on there. He even stops into a restaurant who is closing. They won't let him order anything from the menu. It's like, but it's only 6 o'clock. And it's like, yeah, everything closes after dark. You cannot be on the street after dark. You need to get indoors somewhere. So the mystery is kind of surrounding that, and it kind of leads to an interesting revelation and brutal but somewhat silly conclusion. The Neat Job, that has Terry Thomas basically being a complete control neat freak. He's lived alone all of his life. He's built up a fair amount of wealth and so forth, and well, why not? I need to go ahead and get married to, somebody to take care of all this that I've accumulated, and so it's more his struggle to adapt to the cohabitation aspect of marriage, and the fact that another person lives there and might throw off all the little routines and organizational efforts that he's been doing, and basically driving his new wife nuts. This Trick Will Kill You is about a magician who is traveling with his wife all over the world to try and find the next magic trick, the thing that will elevate his act and revive the career, and so on and so forth. And while they're traveling in India, they come across something that is impossible, and in their attempt to procure this impossible what have you, evil is afoot. Bargain in Death is a segment that is basically just kind of Flatliners meets insurance fraud gone wrong. And Drawn and Quartered is an interesting tale about Tom Baker being a painter who is struggling. He's down in Haiti, just kind of painting in his hut and reclusive from the world, and then he comes to find out that back home his paintings are actually doing quite well, and he's been lied to by art critics and promoters and so on and so forth. So it's his tale of vengeance and how one man's vengeance might reflect back upon him. So I mean, that's about it. They're interesting segments. I wouldn't say that I'm glad that it was an anthology horror, that it was made up of short stories, because none of these would actually lend themselves to flesh out into a full-length motion picture on their own. But regardless, they do a good job of lending themselves to this particular anthology. And as far as a sequel to Tales from the Crypt, I thought it worked pretty darned well. So, I mean, I really don't have a whole lot more to say about this one. Everything was decently acted. All the technicals were decently there. Just none of it really held a candle to the first Tales from the Crypt. But I still would recommend it. If you did like Tales from the Crypt, I still would say that you will like this movie, and it is worth watching. If you like classic horror, if you like especially like the Hammer horror series, then you're probably going to like this one. I personally would recommend this. This did have a 5-star rating on Shudder for a reason, and the quality does show. It just happens to have the misfortune of following up an epic classic. So that should about do it. That's my review of 1973's The Vault of Horror. I really thank you for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you like these videos, please click like and subscribe. And if you want to support me further, my Patreon link is below. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.